Hi, this is Michael from The Generalists. We're back.
Hey, Raz Kotler, Generalist. We back.
Amanda, thank you for coming. Let me introduce you really quick. So Amanda Kua, I think everybody knows you probably way more than us, which is pretty exciting. BackScoop is, I'm assuming what you would agree is what you're known for. You also did a startup in the Philippines, but I think most people don't know about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe we can talk about that today. But I think the exciting thing is just what's happening with BackScoop, in my opinion, in the region. I think you pinged me about it, correct me if I'm wrong, over LinkedIn, and I told you I had already subscribed.
Yeah,
is that
I think
correct?
so. I remember I reached out to you myself
Yes.
like a few years ago. So you've been seeing most of the journey, I would say.
I think almost all of it. Yeah. And I would say I'm not just a get it, I read it. I have this workflow from it, which I think I've told you about.
Yeah.
Which is you always have the introduce somebody. 9 times out of 10, I probably already know them, which is great. But if I don't, I cut and paste. It goes into LinkedIn. I connect. I'm premium on LinkedIn. And I leave a note that says, I saw you on BackScoop. Everybody replies. And everybody accepts the connection. And everybody gives me a message back. So that's my workflow for reading the newsletter and growing my network. So
You just reveal a hack.
I did.
I think people are probably taking notes
But
now.
her network's still way bigger than mine. So you're over 40,000 now on LinkedIn, correct?
Yeah.
Last week, I saw your
last
post.
week, yeah.
What does it grow by a month?
I don't check. I actually just look by milestones, so every 5K or every 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any celebrations?
I celebrate with the post, and then I have a nice lunch.
That's
lunch and
fantastic.
smile.
Which type of a lunch?
Anything. Now that I'm in Singapore, I just tried to look at the new restaurants. So for the 40K, I'm still deciding what I want to eat before that.
Where are you going to go? Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't picked one specific restaurant yet. I have a few on my list, but nothing that is set in stone yet.
It'll happen. It'll happen. So you're leading us where we want to go with this. So generally speaking, at The Generalist, we have this, we're in Singapore. We're only doing face-to-face live podcasts. A lot of times people live here, traveling through here, or your situation, maybe you want to expound upon it. You're now here more often than you used to be. Tell us about that.
So the first time I went to Singapore for work was like a year and a half ago, around that. I think it was early 2023. So I feel like ever since then, I went from not going at all since I started my company to this being like my 5th time back. Like that happened really quickly. And I feel like at some point I felt like every 3-4 months I would just know I would be back here. So I thought that I keep buying here already. Most of our readers, most of our clients are here. I think it makes more sense for me to come here more often. And then I looked at like all of the costs as well. Like just coming here for at least 3 months at a time even makes more financial sense than constantly flying in and out as well. And then at the same time, one of the reasons I wanted to move here was I'm 22 years old. I've lived with my parents growing up. I didn't go to university. I thought it's about time I learned how to be independent. So this is like my beta testing to living alone in a very safe, convenient country to do.
Do you think you'll move?
I think so, yeah. I feel like the more I spend time here, the more I realize this is the kind of environment I do want to be in. So it's like the way the city is laid out, the convenience, the lifestyle, and the kind of people. And everything around. I think I've been exploring everything as much as I could to really understand whether is this the place I want to spend the next chapter of my life. And so far, I think the answer is yes.
And I guess it checks a personal, because you're saying, hey, I get to get out. It's safe. I can learn to be on my own. Business, it's the center. You see it as checking both those boxes.
Yeah,
and is that what makes it one of the better choices for you?
Like it's a win on both sides.
Yeah.
So I think it makes it a very easy decision to make if I'm like choosing city to city, because it has the best of both worlds, like the professional world, and makes it a lot easier on the personal side too, compared to like other like CBD type cities around the world, right?
Yeah, that's cool. I think we had tried to set this up before, but then when we talked about you were here more often, it's been great for us. Welcome to Singapore. And
yeah, thank you. It's a nice way to be welcomed.
I think it's also cool that you're maybe hunkering down around Singapore from the business perspective too. I think that's a great value add to the city. So awesome. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been doing like more events too ever since I got here, and other people keep reaching out. So I'm like, wow, I don't even have to go looking for things to do.
I think the density of Singapore for the tech startup, it's ridiculous, right? Like they're all here, or there's an event when they're gonna come here. I'm sure you'll be able to meet everybody you want via Singapore at some point, right?
No, I think it's really crazy. There was one day I ran into 3 separate people I knew in one day. Like when I was having coffee in the morning at a coffee shop, somebody like I met through BackScoop went up to me during my afternoon coffee. I was having a coffee meet, and then outside of the window, I was right beside the window, my client walked by and saw me, and I waved back. And then I think dinner time, I met someone who was like a friend of a friend, doesn't really know who I am. It's one of those very loose introductions just so I can make more friends here. And the person was like, wait, I think I've seen you before. And then obviously I'm not the kind of person to say, yeah, of course you've seen me before. I know where you have seen me.
Hello.
I didn't say
You're like,
that.
really? Like,
I was just
where?
like, oh, where do you think you saw me? But I noticed either through LinkedIn or through BackScoop. That's pretty cool. And then it happens every few weeks. I see somebody who I either know or recognize me. The other day, I was in the East, like not even in the CBD. I was out for 3 hours and I saw 2 people I knew.
Now, would this even happen in Manila?
I don't think so. Not to this extent.
Yeah.
Like 3 people in one day, 2 people in one day, and this happening like week after week. Not every week. That would be exaggerating, but it happens multiple times a month.
Which I think it's a great inspiring for any entrepreneurs that want to be in the right city on the right time and be close to customers and see people that might gonna lead to business.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about other entrepreneurs that thinking about it, and what you just described give it the sense of, hey, maybe Singapore is a great place to be as a co-founder or starting a startup.
Yeah, to be honest, I was telling myself before, oh, I should just stay in the Philippines. It's like the costs are lower and like I can build like a better life for myself there, like quality of life versus like how much you're earning. And then like I felt with the internet, with my following on social media, with Zoom, it's easy to connect with everyone online anyway. What's the point? But the more time I spend here, I realize there's still a lot of value being physically in a different place. I am like 100% admitting that I have changed my opinion. I used to have a very strong opinion and now it has changed. Yeah.
Yeah, strong opinions loosely held, right?
I don't think I was loosely holding on to it, but like I'm willing to admit my opinion has changed. Yeah.
But it's part of startup life, not pivoting. Yeah?
I think there's some of us ebb and flow with our relationship with Singapore. I've been here 16 years or something. I think during COVID, I had my what I call throw in the towel moment almost. And I've had some, but when I sit down sometimes with a pen and paper and I start, where is this and where is that and where's this possibility, the Singapore checklist still gets checked to the point that no other city in Asia can I check as many boxes.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And I feel like every time I come here, there's some kind of like magical thing that happens. I'd never been an F1 fan. I only see it on social media. So I knew 5 racers' names. Then 2 days before the race, one of my clients reaches out and asks me, oh, do you have a ticket to F1? And I'm like, oh, no, I don't. And then I thought that was it. Then they said, okay, I'll get back to you, but clear your Sunday in case. And I was there expecting, oh, I'll just get one random ticket and I'll just get to walk around and just physically be at F1. And then they come back to me after 2 days and say, we got you a ticket and it's in the VIP Sky Suite. I had to look it up. VIP ticket? What is that? Sounds really good. And then I like find out it's like the second best seat in the entirety of F1. And then I go there, have to look up all the racers, all the teams before that. And then I get to watch F1 for the first time in Singapore from one of the nicest places you could ever watch it. We had air conditioning, fully catered
and you
food.
met one of the ones you know, right?
Sorry?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there a female Philippine
Okay,
racer
that's the
in
second
McLaren?
crazy part because I was in the suites, right? So there's a hallway outside and all the suites are like lined up. So I went to the restroom, I was walking back to my suite, and then I run into another client of mine, but this one is from the Philippines. And I was like, why are you here? And he's like, why are you here? And then he says that they're going to meet the Filipina F1 Academy racer later because they also sponsor McLaren. And then he was like, why don't you just come with us and meet her? And I'm like, sure.
Twist my arm.
Like who else will say no? So that's like crazy to me. If I was not in Singapore, I don't think anyone would have DM'd me asking me if I had a ticket.
Yeah.
And then Singapore is just so small that my client was also in town watching from another suite. And then I run into him in the hallway. What are the chances? And then I get to meet the racer.
Yeah.
My experience was already amazing.
Yeah.
And it became like more than
You're over
amazing.
the moon that day.
Yeah. I was like walking through F1 thinking like, is my life real? Is
Yeah.
this like secretly a movie?
Yeah, and that's what you can't argue with the capital whatever theory of Singapore. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. I didn't get an F1 ticket though.
Me too. Sorry.
We got to work on that for next year.
Next year. I was almost there, but almost doesn't count.
No, doesn't.
No, doesn't count. BackScoop.
Yeah.
Okay. We did the fast forward. We spoke about F1 and your crazy experience in Singapore, but let's go back. Honestly, I was listening to a lot of podcasts you speaking
Oh,
on. Yeah, so I like to do research. This is part of my thing.
He does this.
Yeah, I like research.
so you know a lot more about me than I thought.
I don't know. I'm always doesn't know what I don't know. Yeah. But tell us a bit, few nuggets for the ones that didn't do the research like me about BackScoop, because I'm sure there are other hundreds of thousands that doesn't know about BackScoop. But also disclose something that you didn't discover yet. So it's gonna give us something interesting to listen to.
Okay, I can share how I got started. In 2020, I actually graduated from high school in the Philippines. I was planning to study abroad, and then COVID hit. So I think financially it doesn't make sense to spend the same amount of money to study on the internet. And I also had this grave fear that what if they make me repeat like 2 to 3 years more of university physically? So now I will study for 7 years. Like nobody knows what's going to happen with COVID. So I thought with all the uncertainty and maybe I might even die, like why not just spend 1 year like doing something where I could actually control what I'm doing and take a gap year, because there's so much uncertainty. I won't enjoy this university experience anyway. You're not getting what you pay for. I might as well go do something that I think is interesting. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know what interesting is, but I'll try to convince my parents to let me take this gap year. And I also told my parents that we all know that I didn't get into the universities I wanted to get into and that you wanted me to get into. So maybe this is also a sign from the universe to take the gap year. And then I think the part that they hinged on was that maybe after the gap year, I'll get into somewhere better. And I think that's what made the decision easier for them. The ROI part of you're spending so much money to study on the internet, and then the maybe I could get into Harvard next year. Maybe. I said a very hard maybe. Yeah, so that's what I told them, and then they agreed. So with that, I was on a 1 year gap year, unplanned. And then my mom just told me, make sure you don't become a bum. And I said, I'm not going to become a bum, but I have to find out what to do.
Moms are so straightforward.
Yeah, she called me once while I was at home. I think she was downstairs, and she was just like, just checking in on you. Don't become a bum, okay? Find something to do. And I said, I'm working on it, Mom. I'm working on it.
Parents like to see results.
Yes.
Immediate results. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for the first 3 months, I was soul searching, because I was trying to take this approach to the gap year where I don't understand what happened. Why didn't I get into the universities I wanted to go to? Why is this happening to me? Why is there COVID? So I thought I must go back and figure out at the core of myself, what do I want to be doing with my life? So I was like reading, taking Coursera courses. I also knew that I'm the only one on a gap year and all my friends weren't. So I might end up being like really sad about it. So I consciously worked out every day so that I would have the dopamine boost because I was worried that I would become emotionally unstable. And I even did reflection and meditation. I'm going to be 100% mentally, physically, and then make a plan for what to do next. After the 3 months, I felt like I was pretty stable and I had finally settled on what I wanted to do. I had this amazing realization, which is I want to break into tech. And then the next thing was like, okay, after 3 months of spending time to figure that out, how do you actually break into tech? I was like, wow. But yeah, I came to that realization, and then I was scrolling on my phone or laptop, and I saw this article that said there was a Philippine startup that had just raised funding from the co-founder of Tinder. I barely knew anything about startups, but I knew that was a big deal. Like, I know that nobody really invests in Philippine startups in 2020. So I clicked the article, I checked it out, And it was a coding bootcamp startup that would train people to be software engineers in 12 weeks or something like that. And I thought, this is the answer to my prayer. This is a sign from God. He wants me to learn how to be a software engineer. Best case scenario, I can make an app and then get into Harvard. Worst case scenario, I have a marketable skill.
I love how the Harvard thing is
Yeah.
still there.
Like, why my parents really wanted me to get to like an Ivy League or something. I would push myself.
It's a good decision tree. You know?
Yeah. I was like, best case, Harvard. Worst, actually, I didn't really want to go to Harvard. I'd prefer like maybe Penn, or Columbia. That's more me. But I'll tell my parents Harvard. And then worst case, I learned to code, and that's a skill I can have even when I'm at university. And like when I graduate, I have my economics degree, and I know how to code. Like, who will not hire me after this COVID crisis?
Unstoppable.
Like, I was like, everyone will hire me. This is perfect. So I get into the course, and long story short, I can't learn to code. It's so hard. I had been a good student all my life, but I could not figure that out. For the first time, I copied someone's homework. I put it in like the code editor. I pressed the button, didn't even run. I was like, I'm already copying someone's homework, copy paste, and it's not even working. So I reached out to the founder and said, hey, this is not working for me. My time is limited in this gap year. I only have like how many months left. I need to quit because I need to find something to do because I have to apply to university by December. And they basically said, well, maybe you can stop learning to code and you can work for us as our employee. And I was like, I've been trying to apply for jobs all this time and nobody ever wanted me. At least I have a job.
Yeah.
So I decided to work for them. And that's the story of my first job and my first job at a startup. They asked me when I can start, and I was so afraid I would lose the only job offer I had. So I said I can start tomorrow. And that's how I found out the company was run by 2 people.
And you're just number 3?
I was number 3. And I didn't.
It's good. It's a good one.
No, I thought I got scammed. I was so embarrassed. Like the next day after I got
You're like,
in
what
on the
company?
Slack.
There's 2 people.
Yeah, I was like, I thought the co-founder of Tinder invested in this. So why did he do that? Because when I got in the next day, I saw Slack. I was like, oh, 2 people. Where's everyone else? I was scrolling.
Which group am I not in?
Yeah, and then I was like, oh my God, it's just the 3 of us. And then I told my parents that I had a job, but I didn't tell them that I was the only other person there.
I'm one of 3.
I was like, I already disappointed y'all once. I'm not doing this again.
You can always say you're part of the co-founding team.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that concept back then. I was just thinking, I'm the only employee at this company. Me?
Wow.
Why me?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what happened.
And you were doing what for them? Marketing or like?
So I did anything.
Anything they needed.
Anything.
You have to like step back into the perspective of someone who's never had a job before and desperately wanted a job. If they asked me to do something, I would do anything.
Yeah.
And I had no concept of what a job was supposed to be like either. And remember, I had basically no friends. My friends had gone to university at this point, online. We had already run out of topics mostly during the pandemic. And they were all like living a different life. I'm trying to focus on my work. So you have this employee who has no social life, no boyfriend, no other friends, and really just has this job. And so I spent every day working until like late hours, just doing whatever. And then I would, because I get bored easily, when I'm done with something, I'd be like, hey, what can I do next? So I bet they were like overjoyed. I know they were overjoyed because
you were doing
I was
anything.
just doing something, everything all the time. Yeah.
And are you working on BackScoop while you're there?
Oh, no.
No, there's like a clear line between
Yeah.
I've gotten out of this. I still am not in university.
Yeah.
Are you regretting this whole gap year concept at this point?
No.
Or you're still okay?
I'm like so happy with it. This is like, it led me to my dream life that I didn't know existed.
So then when does BackScoop hit?
Okay, so I joined that company like July 2020. And then by December, I was supposed to apply to like university. And I told my parents like, hey, I'm thinking of taking a second gap year because I already got promoted. These are all the things I've done at work. Look, COVID is still happening. And these are all the people I've met through work. These are all the things I've accomplished. Life seems to be going pretty well. Why don't I take one more gap year? Because I can't go to school physically anyway. And they're like,
Makes sense.
They were hesitant at the first time, but this was like more hesitant. And then I just convinced them again. And then months rolled by, and my 1-year anniversary came up at the company, and that's July 2021. And I'm also close to like application season number 2 again. And I was like, I think I want to miss this application season again.
By design.
Yeah. And my life is still going pretty well. Now I have my own intern at the company, manage somebody, and that person like comes back to me every day, tell me what they did. I was like, whoa, I'm 19. They just graduated from college. I think life is okay. And somebody...
I'm your manager.
Yeah, like that was so weird to me. I was like, okay, I had to screen somebody for an interview at the company. And he was like 3 years older than me and called me like, ma'am. And like, I know his classmates. Like, it was so weird. And I was like, wow, I have the power in this interview.
I became a ma'am.
Yeah, I'm ma'am. I'm ma'am to this guy who's like, his friends are like the people I met in school before who would be like the seniors, like the ones I would be like afraid of. Now he's saying ma'am to me. So that was like where I was with the company. Some people even tried to pirate me to work at their company. It's like, I remember when I was jobless and desperate. Now I'm piratable. People want to hire me even while I have a job. So this is mind-blowing. But then I also realized that I learned a lot of things at the company about how to start a startup. I learned about Y Combinator because the company got into Y Combinator later on. I grew my network. I was mainly doing like customer success, B2B sales, marketing, and partnerships, stuff like that. So I learned a lot of those things. But I realized the most important thing that I learned from working there was completely like shattering the way that I viewed like building my life, my career, my perspectives on things. So one thing was like, I don't know anything. Like I was probably the biggest blank slate anyone could hire, but I could become good at anything as long as I tried. I also realized that I have a personality where I will learn something, get good at it, and I will create this huge, grave mistake. And then I will go down a little bit, but then always bounce back 2 times better. So I didn't know that about myself, and it makes me realize that, yeah, I really can learn anything on my own if I wanted to. And then the last thing I learned was that I can actually take risks. I used to take calculated risks. Running for student council, what's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah, you lose, but you just lose, and then you move on.
Yeah.
But risks like not going to university and then taking this job and then continuing for another year, things like that's a huge risk where you actually might tangibly lose stuff if you don't make it through, right? And there are other things that come with the risk. Other people might say things about you. Oh, you have a daughter who has no college degree, or you wasted opportunity for your kid by allowing them to do that. I think real risks come with judgment, come with real things that you lose. And I think that's not something I ever learned to be comfortable with before. I was always like, I'll take this risk, but worst case scenario, I still win. But now I was like, now I want to learn how to take disproportionate risks where I can get a huge reward, but I can also like lose something. And before I would have never been okay with that. But now like I'm okay with that. So when I realized that, I was like, actually staying in this job for another year is not a risk anymore, because I know that I'm doing really well. They'll promote me again. I'll have more people under me. It's really comfortable. So what is the next risk I can take? And I realized that was like to build my own thing. And I'd always like reading, writing, and news. And that's how I realized like, oh, in the past 1 year, the startup ecosystem has been growing so much, but there's no one easy way to stay updated with the region. And I thought, oh, why not? I tried to solve that. And I was like, okay, I will use this Y Combinator document as like a Bible. So I genuinely followed it like a handbook.
The one they give to everybody, right?
Like a bunch of the essays, I was reading them, and then like the MVP, basically what I did was I quit my job. I told myself, this like article says that I have to launch really fast. I will launch in 1 month. Okay, let's figure out how I'm going to do that. And then I did. 1 week, I tried to make the website. I was like, I am the biggest blocker of my own company. I got someone to build my website for $20. I was like, yes.
Okay.
Paul Graham will be proud of me. Move on to the next. After 1 month, I had the first issue of the newsletter out, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just gonna stop for a second, because I think one of the inspiring moments or disruptive moments was taking the risk, because you were keeping asking yourself how I can take the next risk. And this is one of the skills that I found with entrepreneurs. If you don't have this skill to ask this question, can you agree with that or not? I don't know. What is my next risk? Do I feel comfortable or not? can I move forward or not? And taking the risk, it's what makes you successful or big failure, but then you can have a success again. Can you agree with that? Or
Yeah, I think I do agree. And I think that's like what has been built into me after working at the company. Like even moving here is like a huge risk for me. Like life would have been so much easier, like time management so much easier in the Philippines. Here, like I have to worry about so many things. And then like the whole risk of, I don't know it. Well, I know the people I know through BackScoop, but it's not like I have an established friend network here. It's not like I have a routine here. It's not like I have like easy places for me to go, like where do I go for my office? Where do I go for all these things? And like just planting yourself in a new country is like just a risk in itself. And it's even like a business risk or a personal risk because you're spending more, you're completely changing your lifestyle, the way you run your business too. Yeah.
This whole framework for you now is not something I think any of us are taught in high school and stuff like that. So when you think about all of this now and as a female in where you just started something from scratch, what do you say to others to encourage them? Because I could imagine some parents are going, oh my gosh, listen to this girl. She didn't go to college. Do I want my kids? You know what I'm saying? Look at her framework. It's let's not go to school. Let's build a thing. But it's also super inspiring that you have these female possible entrepreneurs in the ecosystem who are probably not told to think this way or to unlock their lives this way. Do you think about this and do you have advice for them? Because this is, like you said, completely different than what you thought you would do. And suddenly this is what you're doing.
So for all the parents out there, I genuinely love school. You ask all my teachers. I was there early, finished my homework, and I genuinely wanted to go to college. So I think that's the biggest irony of my story. Like among all of my friends, I probably enjoyed school the most. I was the student who was like, if there was like one resource for like the chapter of that lesson, I would find like 5 of my own resources and read them all together and make my own notes. Like that's how much I love school. But then I guess life had other plans. But I think in terms of the way that I view my life and have built my life, or even like anyone, whether like female, male, or anything, I think you can like fundamentally change the way you view the world through some kind of, I wouldn't say a traumatic experience. I don't think like my COVID experience was traumatic, but I think it takes some realization to make you want to fundamentally change the way you think about life and the world.
Some awakening or something.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's the more organized way to say it. So I had my wake up moment back then in 2020, right? Yeah. I was in deep self-reflection trying to figure out who am I from the root. And that gave me like the mind space to start fresh because my friends were not really around. And then I didn't have to go to college. I had like really this blank slate for myself. So I had probably one of those rare opportunities in life where I could really recalibrate and ask myself, how do I want to build my life? How do I want to do things differently now? So I think maybe for anyone who wants to like make a change, you have to create that space for yourself where you ask like, how do you approach the way you're building your career? And what kind of change do you want to make? And how can you do that? And I don't think it's something you can do just by thinking. Like I had to radically change my life by working at a startup for 1 year. And that change happened throughout multiple experiences working there that challenged my thinking and the way that I viewed life. I think when you grow up in I guess like my upbringing maybe is a little similar to Singapore. We're very academic, very focused on school. Then you go to college, you want to get a good job. Like I wanted to get into banking and consulting. And I thought that was like the best way forward and easiest way forward to get to where I wanted to be in life, which is to start my own company in the Philippines, like a regional business or something like that. But it's only after you can experience things outside of your usual bubble. For me, that was working at a startup, doing something weird and scary, like working at a company where you thought you would be with other people and turns out you're the only employee, where your boss tells you, hey, we told Y Combinator we had 30 partners. We actually have 0. It's your job to get 30. Like those kinds of experiences will just transform you. And I think if you haven't had that wake up moment in life and you want to, you have to force yourself into an experience, like a new job. I don't know, travel around the world for 6 months. I've never done that, but some people have found their awakening that way. to change the way you think, because I think if you stay in the same environment, it's hard to change the way you think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible that this happened to you even in Manila, where some people say it's not the heart of these things. Like you said, there's not a big start, but it still happened for you.
Yeah.
Like it was still possible to be where you were, or maybe in any other city in Southeast Asia, and grab something like that, which, you know, a good 10 years ago wasn't the case. So that to me is also just an amazing part of the ecosystem.
I think that's a really good point. That's also why I really enjoy the work that I do, because I feel like when people see like my profile and they see the work I've done at BackScoop, they're like, oh, she's been doing amazing work for the ecosystem. But for me, I feel like I'm just doing the work that I want to do, because this startup ecosystem like was what gave me the opportunity to change my life. I don't think other companies would have hired an 18-year-old high school graduate. Yes, they didn't pay me, but they trusted me to do a lot of important work. They trained me, and then they gave me opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think only startups would have given that to somebody like me. So for me, like the work that I do every day sounds cheesy, but I feel like it's just the right thing I want to do. And I'm constantly like still motivated, because this is the ecosystem that did change my life. So I feel like I also owe it back to the ecosystem to do this kind of work, like reporting on the news, shedding light on like founders and VCs. Because if I can help keep growing the ecosystem, then maybe like other people similar to me can also get the chance that they need to transform their lives and the way that they think through working at a startup too.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And I think it's very unique. The way you said it's like very simple. Yeah, have this opportunity to go to a startup, but you have a very unique engine to move things around. Not everyone can do that. And I think this engine, especially in the ecosystem, can be a good accelerator to provide a better opportunities to other entrepreneurs. And now I want to imagine with you, let's take a situation when you're getting the keys to the kingdom, and now you're in charge of the entire ecosystem in Philippines. You got it. What you gonna do? What you gonna start? What you gonna accelerate? What you gonna do a change of? What's gonna be your strategy?
So actually, yes, I didn't go to college, but I'm a firm like believer in education. I think the biggest thing that I think would impact the ecosystem is actually bringing up the quality of education in the Philippines. So I transferred across like different schools in the Philippines for like my middle school and high school, and I saw how even at the private school level, how drastically different education could be and the quality is. So I feel like if I were to create more quality entrepreneurs, if I were to create more high quality talent to work at these companies, because that's a big problem of the local startup ecosystem today. There isn't enough high quality talent to work at these companies, and there aren't enough founders as well. I think the biggest catalyst for that would be to improve the quality of local education in the Philippines, even from the primary school level up until university level, and also have maybe the government or other corporations sponsor more people to study overseas and come back. I think those kinds of changes would actually help the ecosystem the most in the long term.
So teach them about innovation, like where you want to focus these studies. Like
I don't think it necessarily has to be like just about like tech and things like that. I think if there's something I've learned meeting so many people is that whatever you study for university doesn't necessarily determine what you're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe there would have to be some who would be focused on STEM, just so we have enough like software engineers, enough like data scientists and stuff to come back. But I think in general, just raising the quality of education as a whole, because I think if you went to the Philippines and then you would look how people perform, you would see like overall, I think everything still needs to be improved. Yeah.
And do you think, because with your example is I'm not going to college, I'm doing it, which again is like a different almost than what you just said, but I do understand what you're saying. If we level everybody up, they're all going to be better. But do you also think there's opportunity to like outside of like maybe primary school and high school, that there's other pathways to learning the type of things that make people more possibly succeed in the world you're describing? Because I think some people I go to college. Do you think there's other things, and does that kind of dovetail with, are you done with college, or do you think I still want to do it? Because these things are all intertwined together, right?
I think another thing that I think would be really interesting too is just have more opportunities for people to have like hands-on practical work. I think growing up I had a lot of like random activities I was trying to do. I had one random internship where I was basically just grabbing coffee for people, but I got to see what they do every day. So I think those were really helpful in my experience to see more of the world in the working world. And then I also did some like scholarship programs where I got to study in China and see things outside of my own country. So I think apart from what I mentioned earlier, getting people to have more like hands-on experience, I don't know, internships more built into like curriculums, or I think in Singapore you guys have like NOC and other like international exchanges. I think facilitating more of that, especially with a built-in internship overseas, would be great. And just having people have more worldly international exposure, whether that's a study abroad or like the internships, as I mentioned.
Yeah, because what you described, and this is not to belittle the role that you had, don't get me wrong. What you described is almost could be somewhat solved with, while I'm in high school, I'm interning at a startup, and you would have saw a bunch of the stuff you saw. Maybe you weren't managing people at 19, but you know what I'm saying? You would have that exposure that, because I think about that in my own kids. Like, why aren't we like, you hear about all this interning at college, and I'm like, why not intern them even a little bit earlier? But you don't see enough of that. Yeah.
Even just like being at the company, getting to shadow someone, I think is already valuable at that age. Yeah, I think that would be great too.
Yeah, there's a lot to work on. Yeah. So it's 2024, so it's hard not to talk about AI. I'm curious for yourself.
It took us like 34
minutes. Yeah, it's good. We did good.
So.
We did good.
We didn't say AI. 34 minutes.
But I think in the media industry, which is, I think of largely what you're in, right? In the media industry, and you're a small shop, are you using AI today for any of your stuff? And what do you think impact it's going to have on the work you're doing, or where you think you might take it?
Actually, right now, in terms of the news section of the newsletter, we don't use much AI. I write pretty quickly, and our writers also write pretty quickly, so we don't use it for that element. But for the longer form stories we use AI for the brainstorming part, like thinking of companies to write about, looking at the structure, but it's still not a huge part of our process. I think in the future we'll also still explore other things we can bring AI into, but at this point, those are the only things we use it for. In terms of the industry as a whole, I think AI has made it easy for anyone to create more content. So there's definitely a lot more competition. I think my belief is that whether you're using AI or whether you're not using AI, to create the content, quality content will stand out the most. And quality content is more important now than ever. So I think it's up to the company. Does your best work use AI or not? It doesn't really matter right now. But what matters is, can it compete in terms of the whole ecosystem where anyone can create content because there's AI? Like even on LinkedIn alone, like I can see who's using AI or not. So when I
see these feel like monster posts now, and I'm like, come on, where did that? Can you just write a few of your own paragraphs?
By the way, secret. If you want this secret, you can find it in Google. There are AI detectors. Yeah. So if you feel that this post is AI, you can just copy paste it, and it will let you know what's the percentage of AI of this post. Yeah.
I think that's like a good example. Like for me, when I see like a high quality post not written by AI, or at least I don't think it is, then it really stands out. Yeah. Because there's so much more content now going around on like even just a platform like LinkedIn, because people are using AI to create that content.
Yeah, fair. So I want to ask one last thing, and then we'll move into our closers. I'll let you lead those off. When I look at your experience, it's like you hadn't really done any startups until you did the one, and you jumped right in the BackScoop. You didn't go to school for business per se. You didn't go to any startup school. So you were largely, I wouldn't say not prepared. You weren't really told what to worry about or what to be concerned about, because you were just like, I'm going in.
Yeah, right? There are no rules because I'm not aware of them.
Yeah, which I think is actually maybe even better. But I'm curious, now that you've jumped in and you've been operating BackScoop for a while, what has turned out to be something like really hard for you that has surprised you, or that you didn't think would actually be something hard?
I think the funny thing, and this is probably what I didn't mention, like earlier you asked me to share my story and share something I haven't mentioned before. I think the hardest part is realizing that I was 19. One day I was my parents' kid and I had to follow all their rules, and the next day I had my own company. And then 1 year later I had to go out late at night and tell them, I have to meet an investor. I'm going home at 11 p.m. after drinks. and you cannot tell me no. I have to go. I had to grow up at the same time as running my own company. And I think the biggest struggle was that there's no clear line, right? When you go to university, it helps you slowly become an adult. And then you have this milestone when you get your first job. I am an adult. I don't have to follow other people's rules. Or maybe you have to, but you have that level of independence. I had to slowly remind myself sometimes, oh yeah, I don't have to ask my parents for this. I'm just going to go. I have to go. And things
it's a requirement.
Like, yeah. And things like I have to make my own, I have to go on a business trip. And I was like, guys, I'm going to Thailand. And they're like, alone? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, are they going to tell you no? I think the biggest part was the personal development, the growth, like growing up. So one small side is like that, like parent side. I think they've been super supportive and super helpful throughout the process. I think it's more of the me part. I think what I realized this year after running my company for 3 years, I spent 3 years mostly just working. Because again, my friends are overseas. All I had is like my work and my family. And then now I'm like, now I'm like 22 and I haven't had so many life experiences yet because I was so busy doing the work part and not the life part. And now I'm like struggling with the life part, especially living here alone. I got locked out of my house 3 times. I had to hack open the door. And then because I came from the Philippines, we usually have a car. It's like when I went to the grocery the other day, I had so many bags. And I was like, wow, no one's going to help me. I'm all alone. And then my hands were all hurt and calloused from holding so much groceries because I didn't realize 2 bags with all these kinds of items were way too heavy. It sounds super shallow, but like
it sounds like real life.
It's like
It's a
real
reality.
life.
It's a reality. It happens to all of us. When you said it, I'm imagining myself doing that. So it's fine.
And then I realized I'd never really made friends outside of school friends and people who know me through BackScoop. So when I made a friend on the street that didn't know me at all, I was so excited. I was like, wow, this is like adult friendship. Someone who doesn't know me from like history.
It sounds like the growing up and the business building all getting rolled into one.
Yeah.
Is probably not what anybody had planned for you, right?
Yeah.
How are your parents doing now?
Oh, they're super happy and
Have they
chill.
come visit you yet? Or?
Yeah, they're visiting in the next few days actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
exciting.
So I can't wait to show them I'm thriving and living.
Okay.
I'm glad they didn't visit me earlier.
I make my own breakfast.
Like I showed them the food that I've cooked, and then I remember the first time I used an iron, and then I think I did something horrific once as well. Was that like I left something too long in something? I don't know. But like that is the funny part. Like I was telling myself, why was it so much easier to run my own company than to live alone?
Because you had not done it.
Oh, and then like the other day, late night after a work thing, and everyone had left. And then I was like feeling a bit unwell, and I was waiting for the Grab, and there was no Grab, and the MRT ride is super far. I was like, I don't have the energy for that. And I was sitting near the curb, and I was like, wow, nobody's gonna help me. I'm all alone. I just have to wait for somebody to get my ride. And then another time I was out in the rain. I was like, whoa, I'm alone in the rain. I have to decide whether I walk to the MRT and possibly get lost because it's really late, or whether I try to book a Grab sopping wet because my hair was all wet. Even my shoes are wet. Those are the funny things.
But I guess to me, there's almost an encouragement here of, hey, people, don't be afraid to start businesses because it's not impossible. Right?
Yeah, it's not impossible.
Because you're worrying about other things.
Yeah.
If I could be so blunt, because you haven't dealt with them, and you're sitting there saying, but I've already done this business thing. Now I'm learning how to live, right?
Yeah. The day after I moved to Singapore, I actually got really sick, and I had a 39.4 degree fever for 3 days. I was like, wow, what a great introduction to living alone. I have no food, only the tap water, which is great because at least I have water.
Yeah.
And then I don't, obviously I don't want to ask my friends to help me. I'm like, what if I have COVID? So I was just lying there for the most part of 3 days with, I think the first day I genuinely had no food, and I had 1 order of takeout, and I ate that for 2 days. 1 order of 2 bowls of congee because I had no energy to walk downstairs.
To get more.
Yeah. And then the rest of the day I figured out how to get groceries online, and then I was so sick that I was so slow at going down, and the delivery man was upset at me, and I just said sorry to him and dragged my stuff on the floor up, and then ate biscuits for the next 1 day.
This is the story of a true co-founder.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, at least with the video, everyone knows that she's doing okay.
Yeah,
Like,
She's fine. She's
after
fine.
all of that, for the past 2 months, I know I can live through anything.
yes, you've survived.
Yes.
Awesome. This has been fun. we have a couple of questions we ask everybody.
Okay.
So we're going to throw those at you. You want to kick it off?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We spoke about your high school
Yes.
for a few minutes. But now let's return back to your high school story. And if you're going to meet yourself in high school, would you say something else or something different to do?
I think I would tell that high school self to keep doing what she was doing because it brought her here. I think what I remember the most about myself in high school is that I always had this goal. I would always have a lofty goal. Once upon a time, I also wanted to go to Cambridge. And there was this one degree that I really wanted to take. I think it was like land economy. And I was taking the International Baccalaureate program. TLDR is that you have to get a certain grade at the end of the year when you graduate based on all of your assessments. And it's out of 45. To get into land economy, I think it was like 41, 42. So I wrote this number 43 on or 42. I basically wrote this number on the wall. And I didn't think I would reach it. At the end of high school, I did reach that number. So I had this habit of having a lofty goal and not thinking I can aim for it, but then actually being able to do it later on. So I think that kind of spirit I would keep on doing, like not being afraid to have an ambitious goal that doesn't seem realistic, but you still put it within like the bounds of far-reaching possibility. Yes.
So you would keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
That's good learning. So you mentioned when you were in your gap, you're trying to figure things out that you're like, hey, I'm going to work out, I'm going to do. So now that you've been a business person for a couple of years, you've moved here, how do you stay healthy and both physically and mentally? Do you have a regime that kind of you stick to?
So when I was in the Philippines, I was going to the gym like anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week. That got derailed when I got to Singapore because I got really sick, right? So I was like recovering for weeks. Now I'm trying to get back on it. I got sick again, but I'm going to try to do 3 times a week. So here you guys are really into classes. So I think I'm going to try to mix like the social element with the workout element. So I'm going to try 1 to 2 classes a week and then gym 1 to 2 times a week too. Yeah. So there's that. And I try to eat healthier. Like I'm not really a huge fan of fried food and stuff. So I think that helps a lot. And just eat like food I enjoy, just not overeating. Yeah.
And are you finding the food you want in Singapore?
Yeah. Like I'm like a huge foodie. So like everything is like great to me because everything is new. Then in my head, I can rank everything. Yeah.
Awesome. And you talk a lot about stuff. Do you keep notes and journal or anything? How are you always remembering all this stuff? Or just because it's still young and fresh in your mind? Because I'm an old dude, I forget stuff. So I'm just
young
curious.
And fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But there are sometimes like when I really want to write about something, I will. It's like the other day while I was sick, I was thinking about something for a really long time. So I wrote like a 6.5 page Google document about it. So if I want to write about something like on a personal level, I will. But most of the time I just keep it in my head. And then if it's like work related, I'll take some like bullet point notes. Yeah.
Got it. But you're a writer, so you like to write some pages when it makes sense.
Yeah.
So
and it's really
cool.
easy for me to crank it out when it does make sense.
That's awesome.
Okay, tell us something that you are watching or reading recently.
So I'm actually not a huge fan of like TV. So if you ask me like movies and TV, I don't watch that much. But if I were to watch something, and I'm trying to find something to get on my list soon, is I would actually watch like a Chinese TV drama. I love those like romance dramas set in like an urban environment because I was learning Chinese for like several years and I don't want that to disappear. So I actually watch Chinese dramas to relax because I feel like because everything is in Chinese, part of my brain is shut down and I can just focus on the show while like preserving the little Chinese I have left. So I think one of the ones I really enjoyed was like The Rational Life. And I am the type of person to not watch TV until I find that show I really want to watch and I'll binge it the entire weekend.
The whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing, like nonstop. I won't sleep and I'll finish it over the weekend. And then for months, I won't watch anything. So there's that. Yeah.
Is there any newsletter that you're reading which is not yours?
I still read Morning Brew a lot because I think it's like one of the original inspirations.
Yeah.
I started reading them in like 2018. Yeah.
That's a good one. I know that one.
Yeah.
And with the Chinese, is it helping you being in Singapore to practice it? And
I don't think
banter?
there are many opportunities to practice it,
It's
to
all
be honest.
English,
Most
right?
of it is in English. I only remember one occasion I had to speak Chinese. I went to this restaurant and I needed a fork and I only had a spoon. And then the waitress could only speak Chinese. But for the life of me, I could not remember
like,
what fork was. I was like, I know how to say so many other things, but not fork. And so I showed her the spoon. I was like, ling wai ika. And I think that means something like the other one.
Yeah.
But I think what she
The
thought
one
I
that
meant was
doesn't
like,
look like this.
what she thought I said was, give me another spoon,
Another
not give me
spoon.
the other thing, the opposite of spoon. Yeah. So she just gave me another spoon. I'll just use 2 spoons.
Thought she gave you like a chopsticks, but anyway.
I suspect the longer you stay here, maybe you'll run into more opportunities
Yeah.
to use it.
It's fun. I think I would say my Chinese is survival Chinese. I can buy stuff and stuff, but I'd love for it to go higher.
It'll come in handy. Well, awesome. This is great. Thank you for doing this. I'm glad you're feeling better. And I think we've learned a lot. And I think you're just an inspiration for people personally and BackScoop. So that's
Yeah,
amazing.
thank
Keep
you.
it up. Hopefully I'll get a little bit more of your followers come my way. I haven't hit 20,000 yet. So
Soon.
yeah, that's the plan. Cool.
Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was
Awesome.
super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.